power chips and no hard drives and less storage. More and more and more, you're going to be able to have your apps and your data in the cloud, and you're going to be able to collaborate. So if a bunch of students is told to collaborate on a project, they can do it in person, parts of it in person, but they can also do it in the cloud. And you can do that right now with Google Docs, with Zoho, with a number of products. Microsoft has put stripped-down versions of the Office apps in the cloud, and whether you have a Mac or a PC, or I'm pretty sure it even works on an iPad, because I don't think it uses Flash. You can go up there and do it. It's very powerful. It has privacy issues. It has numerous downsides that you can think of, but it has numerous upsides, and it will affect the world in a major way. My personal view is that we tend to have zealotries in tech. I call it computer theology. We have people who, it's all black and white. It's either this or that. It's binary. It's either a 0 or a 1. It's not true. The world is much grayer than that. And I don't think it's all cloud or all local. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid. And in a funny way, in this world we're in, Microsoft and Apple, which have always been thought of as huge rivals, have much more in common with each other, because they're the incumbents who have the big, giant local operating systems. Obviously, Apple has a much smaller share, although it's gone up a lot in the last 5 or 6 years. But that's what they have. Google and Facebook and some of the others are in a different category. But I think for most people, most of the time, what they want is something that's hybrid, which is why apps of the type that are in Apple's App Store and Android's Marketplace, and that BlackBerry, RIM is desperately trying to get a lot of, and Microsoft with Windows Phone 7 and Palm. Apps are kind of a hybrid thing. They're very lightweight programs that, in many cases, depend on the cloud for their data. When on your iPad or on your iPhone or on your Android phone or on your Android tablet later this year, if you go and buy one, you want to find a restaurant, you've got a user interface on there that's much smaller than a typical program on a computer, but it's very well designed for going up to a database in the cloud and getting all the user recommendations within Yelp or within Urban Spoon or whatever, and finding the restaurant. And you can certainly see ways in which that can be used in education as well. So I really think those are the two big trends. I'd love to sit here and talk about 3D TV. I'm not going to do that. You can go out on the floor and watch a million 3D TVs, and let me tell you something, most people aren't going to buy them yet. It's going to be some years before that happens. You can watch TVs with apps on them. That's fine. But I think the two big things are tablet and cloud. So thanks. And I'm open to questions.
I'll take questions here. If you'll line up behind me, and please remember to tell us your name and where you're from. Open mic. We're patient.
Hi, huge fan.
Oh,
Thank you
thanks.
for being here. Michael Miner with Book Renter. Bookrenter.com. So we've seen obviously huge adoption with trade books, novels, with the Kindle, with the all the other ebook readers out there. Do you think that
I haven't bought a paper book in about a year.
Yeah. Now, the textbooks are vastly different from a typical trade book.
What do you mean by textbook?
Well, a textbook, take a typical biology book, has on average 800 different rights holders, has, as you know, color pages, boxes that have special sections. Do you believe that the form factor for a textbook on a digital device, on an e-reader device, needs to change dramatically, or do you believe that it can just basically transfer over as a PDF or as an online version?
Here's what I believe, and I'm not an expert. I am not an expert on the textbook industry, but I know this. As technologies change, content changes to fit whatever the technology is that represents the way people want to consume it, or that's economical to consume it, or that makes sense to consume it. The folks who are doing the no tablet have built their tablet specifically to fit the parameters some of the parameters you just described in textbooks. But there's no reason that I can think of. I sort of doubt that I would be a dumber, less well-educated person if when I went to college, I was reading this stuff on an iPad, and it had a certain aspect ratio. I really sort of doubt that. It's interactive. It actually can do more things than my paper book if we use our imagination. Some of you may know that Apple, in the new release of the operating system, and remember, we're not just going to be talking about Apple a year from now, but let's just stick with Apple for a minute, introduced new features that you can put into their iBook store, which is still much smaller than Kindle, but as you know, you can read all the Kindle books on an iPad too. Barnes & Noble has a big emphasis on children's stuff. Why? It's colorful, it can be interactive. I'd be stunned if in a year I'm not offered essentially the DVD of books. Now I'm talking about popular books for a minute, but think about the application of textbooks. Let's say I love John Grisham. I'm not a particular fan of John Grisham's. I don't dislike him, but I'm not. But let's say I was. Let's say I was a huge fan of his. And somebody